Welcome everyone to our career strategy session with Martinique Waters. Welcome Marty, and thank you for joining me on our second Google Hangout of 2015.
All right, hey everybody.
So as you know, Dr. Perkins Waters, and I'm going to call her Marty if that's okay with you.
That's fine.
This session. She's one of the 6 young professionals on the rise. I'm going to read her bio, so I will be looking away from the camera for a few moments. Upon completion of her PhD, Martinique Perkins Waters spent 3 years in a primary research position in the School of Public Health. As a faculty member in the Department of Health Behavior, she studied the health outcomes of family caregivers. During that time, Dr. Perkins Waters worked collaboratively with her peers to publish 7 manuscripts and worked on several nonprofit, private, and federal grants. Additionally, she made 15 presentations on her research and spent a year training in Health Disparities Research program. She used the knowledge she gained as a RCMAR Health Disparities Scholar in both her research and as the course master for a graduate level African American Health Issues course. Since 2013, Dr. Perkins Waters has been in a part-time faculty position at UAB and Jefferson-State Community College. She educates students on both the basis of psychological principles and introduce them to advanced skills required to complete a research project. So as you can see, her bio is really impressive. That doesn't give half the story. I've known Marty for almost 11 years.
Yeah, over 10 years.
So, super excited to have her on with us tonight. She's one of my biggest mentors. It's a huge honor for me to highlight her and for her to be able to share her story with all of you. So, you've probably read her interview on my blog, and my website is jacquelinetwilley.com. If you have any live questions tonight, you can submit them through Q&A here on Google, or you can tweet me at jvtwilley using the hashtag NTCJ, which is short for Navigating the Career Jungle. That's also the title of my book. So we're just going to dive in, starting at your education level, and if you want to take us back to LSU days and let us know why you selected that and how each phase of your education has played a part in where you are today in your career.
Okay. I think it's really funny when people read bios. You sound so wonderful, like you've accomplished so much, and when you reflect back on your life, and especially only being 5 years post finishing my PhD, it doesn't seem like enough time has passed to really do everything that's happened. But going way back into 1999 when I finished high school, just like any other student, I assumed I was going to school with big dreams of being actually a pediatrician was my initial goal, and I started as a chemistry major. I really enjoyed chemistry up until the point I took organic chemistry, and then that kind of gave me a little break halt. Chemistry wasn't quite the love affair that I thought it was when I got into that course. So I kind of reevaluated my life as I struggled through organic, contemplated going into theology, actually, some other types of humanities or social science majors, and ultimately I remembered my psychology class from high school, and I really enjoyed it. And interestingly enough, it was something that several members of my family had majored in. So I said, well, let me, try it out here at the college level and see how I feel about it. And I fell in love with my classes. I took to them immediately. And, every class just built on itself. Everything was, I just loved reading about it. For the most part, I will say stats, I still hated statistics like most people do. But overall, it was a great major for me. And then when I finished in 2002, like most students who are ending an undergraduate degree in psychology, unless you have some other type of background or a trade or some other specialty, you realize, okay, I need to either know that I'm using this as kind of a jack of all trades type of degree and I'm going to be able to work in some other arena that I'm interested in, or I need to go back to school. So that's where, when I applied to 3 graduate level, master's level programs, in one in Texas, one in Florida, and then in Louisiana. And I was actually accepted to Southeast Louisiana University, where I met Jackie, and for a general psychology program. That program was 2 years long. I worked on a thesis. That's something also very different than a lot of master's programs today. I had to actually write a thesis, which I have no idea how long it is now. I think it was probably about 35 pages maybe. I collected data from high school students in the local area and college students at Southeastern, probably a couple hundred students I collected surveys from, and intensive coursework and statistics and other psychological principles, and I finished there and was ready to actually start a position at Southeastern, just kind of remain in the administrative realm on a college campus and maybe teach a couple courses if I was given the opportunity. From the push of my family, actually, to consider going on further for my PhD. And so I threw out a couple applications. To be honest, I really didn't think I was going to be accepted anywhere. I didn't feel like I was a strong enough candidate. And surprisingly, UAB, the University of Alabama at Birmingham, said, if you finish your master's, we will accept you. And so, I was thrilled, but here I am moving out of my home state to a new, complete place on my own for the first time in life to work on a PhD. And I was completely a novice. Even after taking all the stats courses, the methods courses, doing a thesis, getting to UAB, which is a major research institution, I had no idea about grants. I had no idea about the CDC, the NIH. I had never heard of those entities. I didn't really understand the true ins and outs of a research project, and really went into that degree thinking I was going to get trained to be a professor in a classroom setting, and that was my initial goal there. As I started working on my degree and working as a graduate student for major professors at UAB who are my mentors, started working on a major family caregiving project. So we actually looked at stroke caregivers and their health outcomes. How are they doing psychologically, their well-being, their life satisfaction when they're trying to care for their own health and the health of a family member or a friend. So I was really starting to learn what it was like to work in a major research area. We had over 3,000 participants, and that was a sub-project for a huge study that had over 30,000 participants. So I was really given a great opportunity to see what million-dollar grants were like, the staff that are required, the community space, how it impacted your community, the space on campus that was needed, everything from administration to the actual science that went into it. So it was a wonderful experience. In addition, I'm taking my classes and I'm developing my own dissertation project. And so I completed my dissertation. It was using those caregivers from that 30,000 participant study. I looked at 3,000 caregivers and their risk for mortality to see if you were highly stressed, if you felt like you were really stressed as a caregiver, did that increase your risk for mortality? It took me, I would say, probably 4 years, it felt like, from start to finish, to get that project. In the interim, I continued to work as a graduate assistant. I received a few awards. I received a fellowship from the National Institute on Aging that helped fund my graduate stipend and my tuition. So I was really lucky and blessed in that sense that I didn't really have to struggle and worry about how my tuition was going to get paid. Did I have to work a full-time job at the same time? I was able to work in the area that I was learning about at the same time. So I finished my degree in December. Well, I walked in December 2010. I finished in August. And it jumped right into a faculty position about a month later at UAB.
And that is amazing. We have a question here who says, you've done a lot and you've done a great job of explaining how you went from one point of your education to the next level. Can you share with us some of the challenges that you faced and how you overcame them?
So I'm going to assume you mean the challenges in getting to the next level of each education step.
I'm going to assume that as well.
Okay. It's very interesting. I don't know how I really, honest to God, don't know how I got lucky enough to be in this position. I'll say it started further back with my educational foundation from my family and pushing me to really strive to get the best grades that I could in high school. And that, honest to God, set me up for the rest of my career path because, like most students, I lost my way in college and really had no idea what I was doing. But the foundation that I had laid there had set up to where my grades, even though they slipped, they remained high enough that I was able to be marketable when it came time to apply for my master's. Now, in comparison to getting a master's at Brown, Duke, Harvard, you need to recognize that you need to be a 4.0 coming out of undergraduate. You need to have I'm not sure of the new scale, but whatever the top 85% is for the GRE now, since they've changed the scoring mechanism. I wasn't in that realm, but I recognize that there's hopefully a program out there that can look at my qualities and look at the things that I have accomplished so far and the things that ultimately I think I want to do in life and try to use me as a trainable tool. And that's essentially what happened. So I think when you're going into, if you're given the opportunity to interview for a different graduate program, or meet with people who work with that program, whether it's a professor or a staff member, really explain to them, where you've gone in life, show them what you're interested in, try to be upfront with them about your goals. That's going to be beneficial so people can really get a good feel about your hopes and ambitions, and hopefully it's something that matches up with their program. Some other advice I would say that I learned along the way when you're going to these interviews for graduate schools particularly, make sure you research the program very thoroughly. So know the big wigs there. So know the major professors who are doing, teaching the best classes or who are doing the best projects. Be aware of the type of students that they're finishing there. So are those students going on to another level of education? Or are they going straight into the career world? Really go through their website. If you know anyone who went through the program, talk to them. Ask to meet with staff members to get information, feedback. That's going to be really key. That's what I observed from other people who were interviewing with me at the same time. I'm sitting there nervous, trying to just think about how can I, talk about my career path and the things I've done, and they're sitting there with printouts about the program, or, at that time was printouts. Now you can just go through your phone. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I never even thought about that. I feel so unprepared. So that would be one thing I would definitely give you as a quality piece of advice when you're preparing for those programs. If you're not marketable, at the time, what helped me was getting my master's. So some people want to jump straight from undergraduate degree into a PhD program. There are programs, especially in psychology, that you can do that. I was not marketable and ready to do that. So my transition period was getting my master's degree, and that made me more marketable when it came time to apply for a PhD program, because I did not have the strongest grades coming out of undergrad. I did not have the strongest GRE. But they saw that not only could I have the dedication to complete a master's program, that I also completed a thesis. So it wasn't just I took the information given to me and spat it back out on a test. I had to defend my project and try to explain, what I was looking at with this study, what I had been working on for a whole year. And there were several steps through that whole process, going before the ethics board to even get approval to talk to high school and college students. So that's probably the second key piece I would say about any type of graduate program or even higher education. You have to be willing to stick it out. even when, you know, one door shuts, okay, let me try for another program next year, next semester. What can I do? What internship can I do to make myself more marketable? Where can I volunteer? Where can I work to help get better recommendations? Okay, who can I shadow? Professors are always looking for individuals who want to come work for free. So if you have the opportunity to go work in a research lab for a few hours a week only, and just shadow and watch them and really take in what it is they do and see if that's something you're really interested in. And then later on, that's a resume builder, and it's a great way to get recommendations. So I think that is probably kind of the key elements that helped me get over the numerous obstacles, recognizing that I may have not been the top scorer, but knowing that there was somewhere that fit perfectly for me, recognizing what I did have to bring to the table, and having people that were supportive that I could use as recommendations in that area. And just keep hitting your head against the wall, because it's going to happen. So just keep being dedicated to get to that goal if that's ultimately what you want to do.
And that's great advice, and I think it can transfer to any industry. Just keep going at it, and don't let one thing stop you from reaching your ultimate goal, even if you have to sidestep like you did to market yourself a little bit better. Do what you have to do regardless of how much time that it takes.
Exactly, right. So, and people want it to be instant, and it's definitely not instantaneous.
Right, right. And that's one of the things I talk about in my book is, you know, things don't happen overnight. A lot of times because of popular culture and TV, a lot of folks think, oh, I graduate today in May, and by December I have a corner office on the top level of some, you know, some fancy smashy job. And it doesn't happen like that. It takes a lot of behind the scenes hard work, sacrifice, and dedication. So let's you mentioned this a little bit, but let's dig into your career inspiration and how you were inspired. Just go back to like the grainier level, and let's go deep into this one.
Okay. I'm sorry, the first part. Yeah, we're going back into the granular level of what?
Your career inspiration. So, okay. I'll just read you the first line from the interview that's posted on my blog, and it says, for the teaching aspect, it is a gift I was lucky to have since a teenager. I started educating others through dance and tutoring younger students. So talk about that a little bit.
Okay. Yes, it's, you know, it's interesting on your, you know, resume or your CV for the individuals I work with. You're not supposed to go past, you know, 10 years, you know, keep it current, nothing past what you got out of school. But yeah, it would be great if I could put everything that I did from, you know, high school on, just have 12 pages of just endless information of everything that I've done. So yeah, very interestingly, I have a training in modern dance. I was a professional modern dancer in college, but before that I worked with, you know, on different dance groups as a cheerleader, worked with a nonprofit group through my sorority, Sigma Rho sorority, and we worked with a teenage group, and I was a part of the teenage group in that, and I was coming up with dances, teaching there. I was teaching liturgical dance once I finished high school, and I just enjoyed, you know, working with others. I've always enjoyed helping and, you know, teaching other people anything that I know. And so dance was one of my passions, and so I was really given a lot of opportunity through this teen group, through my church ministry, to teach others the art of dance. And that bled over into the fact that we did community service with our teen group, and then once I became a member of the sorority at local elementary schools. So I'm tutoring, and I'm trying to, you know, teach them educational facets, but at the same time talk to them on a real basis about, you know, life and my experiences and things like that. So it kind of unnaturally unfolded that I was meant to be a teacher. I feel like it's something that was never on my radar initially. When I was little, again, I was going to be a pediatrician. Sometimes I even said a nun or a librarian, but it was primarily always a pediatrician. But here I am in all these other facets of my life. I'm actually teaching people different skills that I've been gifted with. So I don't even know if it really ever hit me. It just kind of naturally unfolded once I finished my degree that I think I want to teach. I think I want to be in the classroom, but I want to work with college students because I love kids. I love the babies, you know, but I feel like so many people focus on that end of the spectrum, getting them through K through 12. Even in research, everything is based on childhood. Everything is based on your development at that stage, and how do we make sure our children are most prepared for education in the STEM programs. Everything is available for K through 12, and I felt that sometimes we were kind of missing the mark when it got to your adulthood stage. And even with my specialty area with the older adults, if I have the opportunity to teach older adults, I would love to take that opportunity. I'm very open that one day I may be working in a senior living facility, working with our senior citizens and educating them on some skill. That would be amazing. I would love to do that because I feel like you're supposed to be a lifelong learner. You're supposed to learn something at every stage of life. It never stops. So recognizing that facet, I think, kind of kept pushing me that, okay, I want to get into the college realm. I have to kind of continue on with this educational journey. If I want to teach, I know at least I have to get to the master's level to work with students there. So, yeah, that really built up my foundation working as a tutor, working with students teaching dance, because you have a lot of personalities. People are tired if you're trying to teach them, you know, dance steps or steps, and it is, you know, it's very tasking on your body. So at the end of the day, it's a different type of teaching because now I'm trying to work that, you know, the brain muscle in a different sense, but it doesn't change your necessity to be able to understand human behavior, for your necessity to be able to work with a variety of personalities. People are going to have an attitude, those who need a little bit of motivation. The same thing happens in the classroom. And it's frustrating that I can't be all to everybody, and I recognize that at the adult level, because it's like you're an adult now. You have to figure it out on your own. So I have to have kind of that stern professor facade a little bit. But at the end of the day, as the semester progresses, you know, if I get to know you, I can't help but, you know, try to help you and give you advice and things like that if you are really looking for that from me. And again, that's been ingrained in me since early on.
And I like how you mentioned that you didn't realize it at first, how those life experiences very early on in high school and early college help propel you to the career that you are in now. And that's one thing that people should understand. You have transferable skills. So what you do in one aspect of life, you can take those skills and transfer it into where you ultimately want to be in whatever career that you choose to be in.
Exactly.
So we have a question here. It says, what is the most rewarding aspect of your career now?
It makes me think. I can't think too deeply about this, so I'm going to start crying. I have a student in African American Studies where I teach my Health Disparities course, and it's a very small program. There, you know, probably, you know, 30 students total in that program. Off on a tangent for a second, I love the fact that like Michelle Obama is pushed for the fact a few years ago in the quality of having, you know, majors like African American Studies and majors in the humanities, and there are other leaders in the scientific realm who are trying to push that it really needs to be integrated. You really need both the medical side and the more hard science side, and at the same time there's a call for having that humanities and those interpersonal skills. They're all interconnected. They're very important. So the program is just wonderful. It's like a labor of love because it's so small, and I teach a class that's usually no more than 10 students, and it's, you know, free talking. We're talking about life experiences, how did the way that your grandmother cooked impacted your health, how does looking at your uncle's experience with prostate cancer, what does that make you think about your health outcomes? So it's a really cool class because you can talk on a personal level. Even if you're not African American, you still know someone with some type of illness that you can reflect on that's a disparity for African Americans. So I have a student in the past 2 years who actually was asked to be the speaker at UAB's recent graduation, and it was just so confirming to me, like, this is the reason why you do this. You watch these students transition from, see, I'm getting teared up already, struggling your courses, and then as they start to get it and they get so passionate, and then you hear about their stories and the places that they go. That's the most rewarding thing about my job. Yeah. Okay.
Aww. And I mean, I think that just speaks to your passion and your heart of who you are, and one of the reasons why you've always inspired me. Now I'm going to start crying because you're crying.
I'm sorry to everybody out there.
So, yeah, I mean, I think it's because you care so much, and when you care and people can tell that you care, like when you tutored me when I was failing my psychology class when I was an undergrad, how you talked to me sternly, but I knew that you cared about me, and that pushed me, because when I was doubting myself and I didn't believe it, because I'm like, I don't even understand what the heck is going on here.
Right. Yes.
But you were firm with me, and just that nudge, that helped me get to where I am, because at one point I felt like I'm not even going to graduate college because I can't pass this psychology class.
Yes.
So I think that speaks volumes to who you are as a person, and why you're such a great mentor and a great leader, and why you will continue to be successful, because you do care so much. So super proud of your student, and I hope they watch this replay if they're not watching live, so that they can take that and inspire the next person and the next generation to be all that they can be.
Yeah, he's actually interested. He's applying for a master's in education. He's interested in working with inner city high school students in history. I mean, who gets a history degree? You don't hear about that, but he is so passionate about history. And as an African American male, he wants to go into the inner cities and inspire our next generation of students. And I think it's so admirable. I think it's wonderful.
Yes, kudos to him. So I'm just going to go a little bit further into the interview that's posted on my blog, because we did have a lot of questions about that, which is the impetus for me having the Google Hangout series with the 6 young professionals on the rise. And one of the things that I asked you was, what tools do you use to stay sharp? And you said, I use textbooks, resources affiliated with my courses to make sure I offer my material through several avenues. I also frequent scientific journals to review the current research that is being conducted in some major areas that I discuss in class. So give us some examples of what are those teaching materials that you use, or some of the journals that you visit.
Okay. Yeah, definitely. As anybody who's a psychology major should be extremely familiar with PsycInfo. Usually if you are affiliated with some type of institution, so you're a student at whatever college that you're attending, they usually have access to PsycInfo. As a major database that links to hundreds and hundreds of journals. So I would say that is a great place to start, depending on whatever topic that you're interested in to study more about or to understand more about when it comes to research, especially in the psychological realm. They also APA's website, www.apa.org, the American Psychological Association's website. They have a list of all their journals there, and so that lists out the top quality journals that are, the forefront of research in psychology that is happening. So that's a great resource, and even if you can't access all of their articles because there is a fee associated with them, you can at least see usually abstracts there and read some of the current hot topics that are going on. For example, Psychology Today is a good source that's affiliated with the APA that talks about kind of the hot topics in, the things that are sexy, obesity, sexual deviance, sexual orientation. So it'll talk about those kind of topics. And then you have, for instance, the Journal of Aging. That's more of your traditional articles that are related to anything under the sun that's related to the study of aging. So if you want to know about when you have to take the keys away from a family member, or family caregiving. If you want to know about cognitive declines, Alzheimer's, dementia, they'll have lots of articles about that there. Particularly for my psychology classes like Psych 101, you cover such a broad spectrum of topics, and a lot of it is based in, some of the historical aspects like Freud. So there isn't a lot of current research in those areas, but you can pull up some classic articles through PsycInfo about Freud's ideas about sexual aggression and the unconscious area. Now, for my courses related to like research methods, you'll pull up whatever article that is pertinent to your topics. So I really push students to go to PubMed and also, to PsycInfo and also to PubMed. PubMed is ran by the National Institutes of Health, and it covers all the articles and all the science out there that is pretty much grant funded and by the NIH and that is related to any kind of health issue. So that's a wonderful resource if you want to stay on top of things that are definitely related to psychology. So you can have articles about anxiety, about depressive symptoms, about health and well-being, stress. Okay, there are millions of articles listed through PubMed, and you can a lot of times get articles as a free PDF, because the good thing about taxpayer money that goes to fund these grants, they say, okay, let's give back to the community. We need to make these articles freely available to the public. So that's another great site to go to. And then some other places that I use just randomly for my class. I go to Google. I use YouTube and find interesting videos, random pop culture articles, and I try to show students, how that ties into the real world when I can. And then also hopefully make people think. The key, if you're going into advanced research, the key to recognize when you're coming into those higher level courses in undergrad is please don't use a website for all your papers. Please go to the initial journals, like I said, the Journal on Aging, Child and Development, any of those type of true scientific journals to find research for your paper. Because if your professor is looking at your reference page and it's all www and it's just random information, even if it's coming from the top alcohol website or the top Alzheimer's website, we really want to see your ability to go to a journal through your library usually and pull up that information and have quality research, because that website, alcohol, Alzheimer's, be talking about things that are in the journal. But you never know when you look up on that random, somebody just created this website and they just threw some wrong information up there, and then you end up failing your papers. So to just be on the safe bet, go to those type of resources, those databases through your library to access and find out where that research truly comes from. And it's going to help expand your research knowledge. And again, when it comes time for you to apply for different places, you'll know the right things to say for your essay, the things to point out. I'm interested in studying about Alzheimer's. Okay, I see the recent research has shown X, Y, and Z. So you'll be able to put those little tidbits in your papers, essays, when you talk to potential mentors, and let them know that you've really been digging into the real research that's going on in those areas.
That's good, and that's really, really good advice that people can start using today. I have another question here. It says, do you recommend attending any conferences or seminars?
Oh, yes, definitely. If you have the opportunity, especially some local meeting on your campus, please attend it, or you find out one in your community. Go to wherever you are, find out the major research institution in your community. Like if you're in Baton Rouge, it would probably be LSU. Of course, here in Birmingham, it would be UAB is one of the big drivers. You have several options in Atlanta, UGA, okay, for example, Emory. Go to those websites and do a search about the topic that you're interested in, or go directly to the department that has that topic. So you're interested in psychological topics, go to the psychology department. Things about neuroscience, go to the biology, or if they have a direct neuroscience department, go to those websites, and usually there'll be a calendar, and see if there are any upcoming speakers coming, any major conferences that are going on. Sometimes they're free to the public. They have seminars, for example, at UAB at the VA every Friday that are major professors in the area of gerontology who talk about their research. And you get lunch at the same time, so that's the really cool thing about it. I went every Friday as a grad student. So you go and you hear what's going on. People are studying about amputation. People are studying about creating a life story as a veteran. People are studying PTSD. And you get to hear all this great research that's going on in the community, and at the same time get lunch, and then you can also connect and find out, meet the person who's speaking afterwards if you're interested in possibly working with them or applying to that program. So definitely, anytime you can attend a conference, especially there are always free seminars, free workshops on college campuses, particularly the major research institutions. Take advantage of that, attend that, and another good thing are poster sessions. If you're not aware of that, it's where it's either usually an undergraduate, a graduate student, or even your major professors, faculty members will put a study in, a 4 by 6 foot poster, and there'll be 30 of them displayed in a room. And then you can just walk around and observe all the research that is happening at that institution. And again, they have undergraduate poster expos and all the way up to the faculty members. So try to find out, Google when it happened. If it just happened, a few months ago, it's probably going to come up that same month the next year. Attend those and see what areas look really interesting, what findings are really really interesting to you, think you're going to be passionate about, and talk to those people. Ask them questions. Don't feel nervous. Explain to them, I'm an undergraduate, or I'm not even in school right now, but I'm thinking about going back and going into a career in psychology, or a career in research, a career in neuroscience. And this might be my topic I want to study. I may want to work in a lab in the future. Can you tell me where you started? What questions you ask, what different animal models you use. Just approach those people. Usually we're standing up there and nobody has talked to us for the past 2 hours because people just walk by and look and nod and keep going. So to have someone be interested in just knowing the basics about our research or our career path, most people will be very open to that. So definitely seek out those opportunities.
And to piggyback on that, we have another question that says, what professional associations would you recommend, both on your level and on the student level? Okay.
I personally, I prefer the more specialized conferences. So my special area, again, is gerontology, and I always attended the Gerontological Society of America conference. To me, that feels like home. Everything that is going on, and it crosses the gamut. It's social work, it's nursing, it's anybody who's interested in the humanities. We have arts components in that, your medical doctors, your psychologists, every researcher, clinician out there that's interested in issues related to the elderly comes to that conference. So it's a great place because if that is your passion, everything's kind of under one roof. And then there are student groups involved with it. There's also a huge expo that happens to where you have colleges there if you're interested in going to a master's program in gerontology. They have different groups there that if you're interested in maybe working for like the CDC, that type of group, or RAND, other health institutions. So sometimes there's opportunities for jobs. Sometimes they're there selling medical supplies. There's all kind of things available in these expos. So I really think that's a great resource, even if you couldn't be if you didn't want to pay the fee to be a member all year long, maybe just pay the fee to attend the conference if it's local, and have that opportunity to go to that expo, and then you get to sit in talks from people. There's at least 500 talks usually in that 3 to 4 day period, and you can flip through and find the areas that you're interested in and spend all day listening to talks, going to poster sessions, and meeting with people who are either just starting out or who are huge in your field. So I recommend that definitely from student up to the faculty level, to find a conference that is specific to your specialty area. Now, I have had memberships with APA. I have had memberships with the American Public Health Association because of where my job was, but I never went to those conferences because, again, I felt like my specialty area always pulled me back to gerontology. And even with the American, even with GSA, there is another group that focuses just on gerontological research. So there are kind of subspecialties across the board. So I would say Google conference or Google societies and the topic that you're interested in, and find out the different groups that are out there, and definitely seek membership. And then on the community level, there are, for instance, some local caregiving groups that I have been involved with here in Birmingham. So if that's a topic of interest to you, they're usually people who are nurses, people who work for the state of Alabama, who come to the table. Even politicians sometimes are some of the sessions and workshops that we are involved with. Getting involved in those groups and volunteering your time can really help you meet a variety of people and determine, okay, I want to work with older adults. Do I want to be in an assisted living facility? Do I want to be in the education realm? Do I want to be on the political realm of it? So that's also a good place to find out local community groups, if there are any available, that meet, you know, freely at this place twice a month, and just go say, I'm a student who's just interested in this topic, and I want to just observe and see what your meetings are like. And more than likely, they'll be open to that. And again, they're always looking for volunteers if you want to work. This specific group is out of Huntsville, dealing with Alabama Cares, and they give vouchers for people who are being caregivers. But finding groups like that, they may need staff help, copying, calling people. You never know where you can fill a niche and have, again, a recommendation in the future.
And we have another question, I guess, as a follow-up to that. It says, can you tell us how you decided on your specialty area?
Okay, yeah. That's another kind of, you know, random personal life story that just unfolded. I want to say when I applied to UAB for the graduate program, I want to say in my essay I just indicated that I was interested in African American issues. I really did not understand research. I did not have a good grasp of you know, grants and needing a mentor and all this. I just kind of threw a whole bunch of stuff in this essay and hoped for the best when I applied. And so as I got into the program that first year, and I was sending my courses, and I remember I took a psychology and aging course at LSU, and then my mentor at the time at LSU was also, her specialty was aging. She did cognitive work, so she was looking at, you know, thought processes and processing and speed of processing, reaction times, things like that. And so I'm sitting in my classes trying to think about, you know, what do I want my project to be about, who do I want to work with over the next year. I just kept kind of going back to that. People who were in aging always were kind of my mentors, and I really enjoyed my psychology and aging course. And then personally, I started reflecting on the fact that my grandmother always said, you know, you really connect with my friends. I would just go and visit some of her friends who I grew up around. Even as an adult, I would go. She said, go see so-and-so. Okay. Whenever I came home, I'd go visit Mrs. So-and-so next door or around the corner and sit there and talk for hours. And her, you know, friends would just say, oh, I love talking to her. And so all this was just kind of going through my mind my first year of grad school. And I'm like, I really connect with the older adult population, and started again thinking about the fact, looking at my classes, I'm in a lifespan developmental psychology program. So it's supposed to cover the lifespan. However, I still feel like the majority of the classes that are available are all geared towards children, or even up through the adulthood with addictions and things like that. And you have one psychology of aging course out there. And so it just opened my eyes that that's really, I think, where I want to be. That's my topic area that I want to focus on. And then I had the opportunity to find out one of the professors who was a psychologist working in the School of Public Health was doing family caregiving work. and I approached him about working with him. I knew one of his other graduate students, and things kind of just really fell in line. So I think it was meant for me to be in that position, because I always was about helping people. That was always something, a pull of mine. So caregiving, you're giving your time freely for a loved one. Hey, that sounds right up my alley. And even more so, it's giving care to an older family member. And I was like, yep, this works out for me. And kind of an additional component of that, I met a African American female faculty member who was doing grandparent research, and I worked with her for a little while before she left the institution. And so that kind of really helped solidify it, because I was raised in a grandparent-led home. And so everything from reflecting on my life from, a baby on up kept circling around, it seemed like, aging issues. And so it just kind of was a natural pull for me.
We have some really good questions tonight. So our next question says, I'm excited. So the next question is, can you share some do's and don'ts about the application process on the PhD level?
Okay. So it's going to vary by institution, but usually you have some type of standard application, your name, that type of personal information, and some type of essay. And a lot of us write kind of one standard essay and then change up who it's going to depending on the institution, and of course your letters of recommendation in your resume. I would say a definite big do is to be as specific as possible in that essay. Put most of your effort in that essay and in your resume, but especially your essay. That's probably your number one thing. Make sure your essay is as clear as possible about your intentions of why you're interested in the program, what you want to get out of the program, and who you want to work with while you're in the program. That is a key. Something I did not do is to go ahead and identify somebody on that faculty at the institution you're applying to in that department that you want to work with. Because sometimes you get thrown into the PhD program, there's no money, you're expected to fund it yourself. And if you identify a mentor, a faculty member you're interested in working with on their research, that may give you a job opportunity. They may need a graduate assistant, they may need a teaching assistant. So that's one key. Then at the same time, if you go ahead and identify who you want to work with, sometimes universities only accept students if a faculty member is willing to work with them. It's kind of because to make sure that we have quality students move between, starting the PhD program and really finish, we don't want to be accepting people who are going to drop out. We want to make sure that there's a faculty member there willing to mentor them through all the steps. So that faculty member has to really feel like you're interested in their topic, that you're going to be engaged, that you're dedicated. I mean, some of the questions that I interviewed with faculty, good, bad, or indifferent, I was asked, are you planning on getting married and having children soon? Like, no lie. Whether, like I said, that's bad or inappropriate or illegal or not, they want to know that you're vested in this program and that you're willing to put in the effort. So if you go ahead from Jump Street, say, I'm interested in this program because of all of the things, wonderful things that it's done, all the great students that it's trained. Next step, I'm interested in working with this person because of the major research that they've done, the topic that they're working in. I see myself continuing on that pursuit of learning more about that topic. So as that professor is reading the application, they can say, okay, grades are good, GRE is good, they're really vested, they've had some internship opportunities, whatever. All right, I'm interested. I'm going to take a chance on that person. So that's really going to help you. And that feeds over into your resume. It's important that you put those marketable skills like Jackie was talking about as much as possible, whether it was from a prior major of education that you're not even interested in doing anymore, or if you were a prior nursing major, anything that you did that can be transferred over as like a marketable skill, a quality, anything that you've been trained in that's going to help you really look like, I'm going to stick this out. That's what I say all the time is the key to finishing a PhD program. It's not having, honest to God, I don't think it's having a 4.0. I don't think it's having the highest GRE. It's having thick skin and being dedicated and willing to continue to jump hoop after hoop. That's even for the master's program. I'll take that down to the master's program, because I've seen colleagues and peers drop out that first year who had the 4.0, who had the highest GRE scores because of stress. And I'm looking at my family and dealing with personal issues and trying to jump the hoops for this program. And it's about tenacity. And that's kind of the key. So if they're looking at sometimes when they look at your application process and you've been that model student, that's all it takes to get you in the door. You went to the top-ranked Ivy League undergrad and you've had the highest scores. And so, yes, I want them. But then other times, if you haven't had that best background, if you can show in your resume and show in your essay what is it about your life experiences and your skills that are really going to be marketable and beneficial to your completion of this program, that just might be enough to highlight and push you over that, I'm not quite sure about this student if you haven't been that top-notch student. All right, some don'ts. Don't have typos. Don't have major grammatical errors. Definitely make sure you proofread everything before you submit it. Don't wait to the last minute. Same thing with your GRE. Don't wait till, it's not like the ACT or your standard test. Don't wait until a month before and think you're going to ace it. It's rough. It really is. And for me personally, the verbal part was the hardest. It may be the mathematical, the qualitative, quantitative part that's hardest for you. So just recognize your weaknesses and give yourself, 6 months, a year, whatever lead in time, and be dedicated to preparing to make yourself as strong as candidate as possible. If you can have the opportunity to email a professor that you're interested in working with ahead of applying and meeting with them, that's something that's definitely beneficial, to talk with them, gauge their interest in possibly mentoring you, find out more about them, so you can even tweak and put little keys in your letter that may make them like, oh yeah, I remember meeting with them. They were on task. They had some good points. Okay, yes, I'd be interested in working with them. Those are definitely some big do's. Try to have, the strongest possible recommendations that you can. I know it's hard coming out of undergrad sometimes. You have your boss who may be at Starbucks, may not be in actually the field that you're in, or even your teachers. If every class is online, you haven't actually met them. I know that's hard, but even if you can start back at the undergraduate point and getting to know your professors, again, volunteering to work with them, even if it's, can I just organize papers for you or whatever, just let them know who you are so you have that vantage point when it comes time to writing those letters. Also, don't be a slacker if you are given those opportunities. I have been there in undergrad, given my mentor at the time. I got caught up in the life. I wasn't showing up when I was supposed to, doing things on time. I was running late, and she had to have a kind of a sit-down meeting. But the good thing is she said, okay, I'm going to give you one more chance. We're going to start fresh. And I showed her moving forward that I was going to be committed and worked hard, and she was able to write a quality recommendation for me. So don't, if you're given any of these opportunities, whether it's with a mentor or allowed into a graduate program, just make sure that you take full advantage of the opportunity.
Another question that we have here, the audience has great questions tonight. I'm very impressed
I can't believe it's been an hour.
I know. We only have a few minutes left. So we're only going to take a few more questions because we are going to end on time. Mm-hmm. Our next question is, how did you find your fellowship, and what advice do you have? Are there any websites that have a list of fellowships for the psychology field?
It's kind of, so my fellowship was through the National Institute on Aging. It's a diversity fellowship, and that's also a great opportunity. There are, when you get higher up into the PhD levels, because they want to keep diversity in those areas, there are specified fellowships out there. You can just go to, just Google National Institute on Aging or National Institute on Health, whatever specific area, because the National Institutes on Health covers diabetes, heart disease. They have individual groups for all kind of health areas. Whichever area that you think your psychological research will fall under, go to that group's webpage and Google fellowships in diversity if you are of a diverse background, and it'll define what they consider diverse. So it's not always African American. It's may or may not be men or women. It just depends on that field, who has been the major type of person who's come through that field, what they'll consider diverse. So they'll have specialty fellowships like that. So that's what I did for 2 years, that offered a stipend and tuition covered. So that allowed me to work on my, but I had to submit an application about my dissertation project. Basically, it was like a dissertation award. So I had to show that this was the work that I was going to do over the next 2 years for my dissertation, and that, it was research-based. So a lot of times those are primarily research-based. If you're interested in more of a teaching assistantship, usually your department that you're going to be applying to, like the Department of Psychology at your institution, will say, we have so many graduate teaching assistantships available. Put your name on the list. There may or may not be some application process. Others, it's more of, hey, first come, first serve kind of thing. So usually their websites are good sources about that. APA.org also may have, I think, has additional a student section, and it'll list different types of fellowships that are out there if you're interested in more clinical. I'm not in the clinical realm, and APA really focuses on that, so they'll probably have more information if you're of a diverse background and interested in going into clinical psychology, being a actual licensed psychologist. They should have lists on that website as well.
That's great. We have about 3 minutes left. I can't believe it's been an hour already. So before we wrap up, can you give us some parting pieces of guidance? I guess some of your gems.
Okay. Last words of advice. This probably covers, any job, and again, I know it's hard because I've done it. Try not to burn any bridges, of course. Try to leave the best impression of yourself possible with every professor that you meet. If you're going to be that person who sits in the front of the class, great, wonderful. Try not to fall asleep in front of the professor if you're going to be that one in the front of the class. If you ask someone to be a mentor, show up. We understand life happens. Life happens for us. I procrastinate. So if you don't meet my first deadline, just be open about life. And you're going to go through ups and downs with different mentors. It's not going to always be a relationship that works. You may have to change mentors. You may think you want a female mentor when actually a man will be better for you. So just recognize you never know what type of mentor relationship you're going to need. And also something one of my mentors told me, that you're going to need a mentor for different aspects of your life. You're going to need a mentor who's close to your age and you're maybe just a couple years ahead of you in the graduate program you're studying in. Then you're going to need a mentor for that career that you want. And then if you're a female, you're going to need a female in that career to talk about balancing life and babies and the tenure process. And then you're going to need a mentor when it comes to how do I keep my marriage and my personal, my spiritual life balanced. So recognize that you need probably 6 or 7 mentors for any career that you're interested in having to be a balanced person and to be an effective person in your life. So try to find those relationships and don't force them if they don't work. Don't try to force them constantly. If they're not replying, if they're not responding to you, okay, maybe this isn't meant to be. Move on and try to reach out to someone else who will be responsive, because you don't want that person who is not responsive to you, is not replying to your emails, because if you start working with them, they're probably going to ignore you. So you want somebody who gets back with you, who seems to be engaged and is concerned about your life as well, and who's interested in your goals. That's probably the other key piece about that. Don't get wrapped up in their expectations for you. Recognize once you figure out what you want your goals to be explicit about that, and they'll either accept it or not. And move forward with them or not, but just keep your goals in mind, because you're not going to be happy if you continue your career based on what their expectations are.
That is great advice. This hour has flown by. I cannot believe it was an hour. I know the video got choppy at some point, so what I'm going to do is have someone transcribe the entire video. And
Okay.
if you go to my website, jacquelineswilly.com, and subscribe to my newsletter, I will email out the transcribed notes to everyone by the end of next week. Also, this video will be posted on YouTube in about 5 minutes, so you can watch the replay, and you can also share it with anyone else who will find this valuable. I thank you all for joining us. Thank you, Marty, so much for sharing your knowledge with us tonight and giving us an hour of your time. I sincerely appreciate it and want to publicly thank you for everything that you have always done for me. You know how I feel about you. So thanks again, and good night, everyone.
You're so welcome. Good night, everybody.